Within the last lesson, we looked at these comparison operators where we had a condition, and if this condition is met, it was true. So we're about to make it a little bit more complex by adding logical operators. And what logical operators do is they allow you to add logical processes to these conditions. So right now we just had this one condition, and we can do these two and signs. And what they're going to do is they're going to use to determine the logic between the variables and the values. So if we have 1 is less than 1 and or equal to 1, and we can do something like this, and this should still come up true because both of these are true. But if one of these by chance is false, that's going to change that whole statement to be false and return this as the output. So we can also do or. So that was and, this is or. So if 1 is less than 1 or 1 is greater than 1, it's still going to remain true, because as long as one of these returns back correct, then our value is going to be true, even though this one's false. And if we change the second one to be false, actually it shouldn't be false because it's still going to be true. So we have to change this value because again that was the equal sign. And you can really do a whole bunch of change here. You can do multiple different ones. So if 1 is 1, and this should come back true now because 1 is equal to 1. And if we do something where what we were looking at before, so that the type is not equal, which the type is, so the type is not equal there. So if we did the type is equal, so this will come back as false. This one is false, meaning they're both false. So as long as one of them is, we can look at it as this type of comparison. We can also do something like this, where we do a not. So again, this is getting fairly complicated, but we can do a second statement there. And if this, so essentially we can do if it's not, if 1 is not equal to 1, which it wasn't. So if I was to remove this out, we're coming back not true. And what we can do is flip that over, and now the statement is going to be true, even though the logic within here is not, because this not, the exclamation mark, is just reversing, making false true and true false. So I hope I've explained this, because this is, it does get fairly complex, and it does take a while that in order to play around to really begin to understand this. And then obviously you can build out even more, so you can do something like 1 equals 1, and so that still stays as true. But if we do something like this that doesn't equal, and again I'm just using these quick values here, so this first it takes a look at this one, and because this is reversed because of the not, it's actually coming up true, and because this isn't true, this is false. This is why we're getting returned false, because we're using and. So if we did something like or, then it should come up true. And then again, we just have to make these comparisons and read them out how that works logically. So we can always do something like this, and then this should still stay as true. And again, it's always good to kind of just play around with this, and just to see that all the different possibilities. So if you had something where maybe you had 3 choices and you had a random choice coming in, so let's say you had a function where you had a random choice, you can actually put this kind of logic into a function. So I'm just going to wrap a function around it, and I'm going to just call it my choice, and I'm just going to use a again. So just for the purposes of the lesson, and what I'm doing is I'm just wrapping it, and what I want to do, instead of outputting it, I'm going to return the value of b. So just to keep things simple here, I'm going to declare b here as I'm just going to declare b as blank, and then I'm going to use this condition if a is greater than 0 and a is less than or equal to 0.33. So this would give us an opportunity to pick out a 1 in 3 chance. So depending on what our value is, what our percentage is, when we send it to my choice, this is what we're going to get as the output. And I'm just going to actually remove this one out as well, and I'm going to call over to this function. So we're going to do a function within a function, so we're going to return back b as the choice, and we're going to send a value of 10, 0.10. So 0.10 is going over to a, and b is equal to nothing here. So we're just going to be returning b, and if a is greater than 0 and a is less than 0.33, we're going to return back a value of, for b, we're going to do rock. And also we have the option to do else if. So this gives us a second opportunity to do an if statement. So in this one, we're going to just do else if, and again we're going to be checking that a. So if a is greater than 0.33, and if a is less than or equal to, so remember we have to account for those stray values there. So we're going to do paper, and then lastly, so we can do just an else here, or we could do another else if. So again, usually good practice is to do an else if. So I'm just going to copy that over, and I'm going to just check to see if it's greater than 0.66, and if it's less than 1, then I'm just going to do scissors there. And essentially it's going to return back this value. So depending on what percentages, it's returning back a value of b there. So here, if I had a percentage of maybe 5, we see that it's going to return back paper, and so on. So 1 in 3 chance. If we had a randomized number there that we're sending through, we would see that we're returning back this random choice. So in order to add a random number, I'm just going to do math random, and that should return back a random number every time it runs. So every time it's running, it's actually doing math random. And math random is just a quick way to get a number from anywhere from 0 to 1, including 1. So every time it's running here, actually maybe a better way to do variable my random, and this is just a way for you to be able to see what the value is. So that gives us, it tells us what the value is going to be of the random number that's being picked. And actually what it's doing, it's overwriting there, so I have to do a little bit of updating there, so I'll just do plus and plus again, and that should give us their random number on top, and then what's being returned there at the bottom. So again, it takes a little bit of playing around, but in order to create this kind of logic, you have to really kind of think it through and figure out what statements make the most sense, and then add and apply the different operators to get the result that you're looking for.